All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it. Welcome on into today's edition of Sixers game recap as we're looking at late last night's Sixers dub over the Portland Trailblazers in Rose City. And was it Emerald City? No, Emerald City, Seattle. Rose City is Portland. But regardless, I want to say this because this was a game that the Sixers clearly took care of right from the jump. They had an early lead. They held the Portland Trailblazers to 34 points in the first half. They shot the lights out. Joel Embiid and James Harden led the way. But yes, the Sixers did allow the Trailblazers to kind of come back. They cut the lead down. It was like, I think the largest lead of this game was 26 points. I was correct, 26 points. The Blazers never held a damn lead in this game. And the Blazers were able to cut the lead less than 10 points in the fourth quarter. But the Sixers found a way to prevail and get the dub. This is my biggest takeaway, not only from last night, but from this road trip in general. We always talk about it with all of our Philly sports, besides the Eagles, because how often do the Eagles have to go out to the West Coast throughout their 18-game or 17-game season? But when you look at the Phillies, when you look at the Flyers, the Union, the Sixers, we always discuss of the difficulties of playing out West. The time zone is definitely a bitch, and the travel is also a bitch as well. We're talking thousands of miles traveling cross country to play in a game that you have to play. Look, last night's game started at 10 o'clock at night. Tyrese Maxey, by the post-game interview, Kate Scott was asking questions. The only thing he could think about was the hotel bed because he was so exhausted. And that's the difficulties of playing over there. But to have the composure that these guys played with here today, they showed confidence. They showed dominance. They looked like a number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, we know that's not where they're at yet. But they're placing down the building blocks of a really good basketball team. 17 of their last 21 games have been victories, and this road trip in general has been really impressive. You look at this game, you look at the Jazz game to start off this West Coast trip, you even look at the Lakers game. Like, I even feel like in years prior, two of those three games that I just mentioned would have been a loss. And I'm being dead serious because basketball, as I hope we all can understand now in 2023, holding a lead is very difficult in this sport. It is a sport that is constantly going up and down, up by 3, down by 20, up by 6, down by 2, and that is the way it works. But it's who finishes at the finish line the first. And the Sixers got that job. It's like for all my Fast and the Furious people, for all my OG Fast and the Furious people, Paul Walker, after the first race against Dom Toretto, he looks at him, he's like, I almost had you, man. And everyone starts laughing because what does that matter? What does it matter if you held a 26-point lead in the third quarter? What matters is you get that dub right next to you in that schedule. And that, to me, is what has been special here about this Philadelphia 76ers team. But you look at some of the stats here tonight. Let's start with Joel Embiid. Again, another dominant night with 32 points. He was 54, almost 56% from the field, 33% from the three-point line. He made 1 out of 3 here today. Perfect from the free throw line. He added on 9 boards, and he only had 2 assists here today. But, it's funny because the Blazers, obviously, they're going to throw in Nurkic because that's their guy. That is their center. That's who they ride on. And Nurkic is not a bad center. I would definitely put him in the top 10 of centers in the NBA. And he's someone that, at times does give you glimpses of top 5. But defensively, if you're going to go up against Joel Embiid, obviously it's a tall task to ask of anybody. But for Joel, you had Nurkic on him. But let me double check here. I just lost my page here. Before the Blazers, I'm trying to find. They also have Drew Eubanks, who, let's say, he's kind of shifty. I won't lie. As a backup center, I did like a little bit of the athleticism he was demonstrating. But they were throwing Eubanks. They were throwing Nurkic. They were also... There we go. They were also throwing some double team, throwing some of those small. You've seen a lot of teams lately have been throwing small forwards and double teams for Joel Embiid as a taller guy, hoping that they could possibly get a steal. And Joel, just being Joel, is able to kind of maneuver away from it. But there was the one play in the third quarter where, dude, right off a rebound. Joel's at the top of the key, right? But he fucking books it, and Nurkic just right on him. And I've never seen that speed. I'll be honest. Never seen that speed from Joel Embiid. He looked like AJ Brown from Jalen Hurts on that play, and that was really really impressive. And to me, that just continuously shows you just the versatility of Joel Embiid and the way he's able to beat you. It's really impressive at that size, and considering honestly, it's just his body and his health history, and for him to just kind of still look like he's a 21-year-old athletic freak, and it is really funny. I do feel like at this point we do need to touch upon the Olajuwon comments, and if you haven't heard it, I do have the tweet right in front of me from NBA Central. Hakeem Olajuwon, the great, let's put our respect, the great Hakeem Olajuwon on Joel Embiid. He's got all the moves, but leveraging the moves is different. Why would he be shooting threes? Now, Hakeem also had comments on Jokic. His shot, his fakes, they are very difficult to time. You don't know when he's faking and when it's real. He has tricks. He's the one. What? Hakeem, what? Look, he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong. Like, obviously, like, we always have these debates, but it's never to downgrade or downsize what Nikola Jokic is. Because obviously, he's a beast. The way he sees the court at that size, at that position, it is truly remarkable. But if you're talking about an overall complete player, offensively, Joel Embiid is clearly extremely effective as well in his own right. He may do things a little bit differently. He honestly may do things a little bit old school. But, Joel Embiid is a student of the game. We always hear that from him. We always see the clips of him trying to pull the Kobe fadeaway from the baseline. So for Joel Embiid, the three-point shooting is him learning and studying the game. He's even talked about him studying things from a Nikola Jokic. And that's just the way Joel Embiid is wired. And that is the way that's just the way this board is going. The center position is not the guy who's just going to stand under the rim. No, center position is going to help create space, whether it be shooting or whether it be on a pick and roll. Just attracting attention in general. Obviously, Joel Embiid attracts a lot of double teams. That's able to open up other guys. His assist numbers were obviously not that crazy here tonight, but that's also a big part of James Harden. But I'll move to James Harden in just a second. But I thought Olajuwon was a little bit harsh on Joel. It could just be me, and obviously we respect Olajuwon. He's a legend of the game. Especially Joel looked up to Olajuwon. You always hear the stories of him watching old tapes of Olajuwon. So it's definitely a little bit interesting. But James Harden, again, a lot we've been talking about on this road trip is just the continuing development and the flourishing of Joel and James on that pick and roll. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and we know when that is ran at a crisp rate, it's going to be so hard to stop this team, because we've talked about this even before James arrived to Philly. Even before the trade rumors back in 2020 or 21, whenever that was. But if you have James Harden, one of the best guys off the pick and roll, as a creator, as a scorer, guy who we always know about the step back three, guy who obviously knows how to drive his paint and not get to the free throw line, and then you got Joel Embiid, one of the best centers in the game, who's never really had a consistent pick and roll game. We all know the time with JJ Redick, right? But Ben Simmons, we all expected that to be that constant pick and roll guy, and it never flourished. It's partially because of Ben Simmons. But more importantly, we have it here. And you see how effective it is. And you see how others can benefit from it. Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, George Niang, D'Anthony Melton. These guys are also benefiting from that pick and roll. But James Harden on the night, 16 points, 14 assists, 10 boards, giving himself yet again another triple-double. He's having a fantastic season. And there's clear differences. I don't feel like we haven't talked about it, but there are clear differences in James Harden's game this season that is really why this team is playing so well. He's fully in shape. This is the best shape we have seen him since maybe the 2019-2020 season. It's been a couple of seasons here. Tobias gave you 11 points here tonight. He was big in that first quarter, adding on to some points. And just in general, the Sixers really just took advantage of just the Blazers' bad play. The Blazers just came out cold. They only put, like I mentioned, they only put up 34 points in the first half. I think Dame only had 4 points in the first half himself. This is a team, obviously, it's going to rely a lot on Damian Lillard. But obviously now Dame has I feel like he's got a number two that fits him better. We always talk about CJ and Damian Lillard, and all those years of how they couldn't get it together. They're so good, but they're just very much identical. And so you got Jeremy Grant in Portland now. He's a guy who also he could take over games. He can make down the shot. I mean, there was one play, Tobias Harris in the first half was right in the face. I'm talking like right in the damn face of Jeremy Grant, and he pulled a Kobe fadeaway. And I was like, oh, okay, Jeremy. You hear Ala, continuing talking about his development, how, dude, his shot in Philly was absolutely garbage. We always talk about how a lot of these processors, how they've been able to flourish in this league, and he's the prime example. He's been one of the best processors, and I'm really happy to see, but he's been clearly one of the best number 2 options that Dame has ever had in his career. And I still think that they need better role players. Anthony Simons is someone who's had a really great season from especially shooting the ball. Tonight was a little bit quieter. He only had 16 points, but I do think that they could use some better role players, and that's obviously going to be a little bit tough, especially how thin they are. But no points for PJ Tucker. I know that crowd's going to be up in arms this morning. D'Anthony Melton, I thought he did a great job defensively. His numbers were 5 points, right? 5 points. He had 3 boards, 2 assists. He did have 2 steals and a block. And I thought just in general, I thought he did a great job. Him alongside Matisse Thybulle. Matisse Thybulle got 16 minutes here tonight and a lot of defensive work, and that's good to see because I haven't really seen Matisse Thybulle being used in that role as a defensive specialist early parts of the season. And again, guys, look, you do kind of need Matisse Thybulle at the moment because defensively, it's been the only problem with the Sixers. Although it has been getting better. I mean, they're in the top 10 defensively now. And if they could just creep up in the top 5, that'll make things wonderful for this team. Because look, championship basketball, we talk about how you look at the way the Warriors won and how they were able to distribute the ball and other guys were able to step up. But I mean, you even look at the way the Lakers won back in the bubble. They were a really sound defensive squad. They created turnovers, they got boards, and so that's going to be very important as well. And the Matisse Thybulle's offensive game, it is what it is at this point, but you need the perimeter help, and you need a guy who's going to be big on one-on-one defending, and obviously that is Matisse Thybulle's cup of tea. 10 points from Shake Milton. 2 points away as well from Matisse Thybulle in his 16 minutes, but again, defensive role. Shake Milton, his 10 points in 14 minutes. George Niang provided 3 threes here tonight. Don't look at anything else. Just look at the three-point shooting, and that's what you're going to get from George Niang. I love, and I say I mean it, I love Tyrese Maxey coming off the bench. 15 points in 28 minutes. You get Tyrese Maxey in the closing parts of games, but it's just a role where he's got a lot of freedom. He can do as he pleases, and he eventually can get integrated with James and Joel. But I think having him come off the bench, especially as a young leader that he is, and you see him, look, PJ Tucker got a technical. He got into it with the ref. He didn't agree with the call. Here's Tyrese Maxey coming from yo, big man, take it down, relax. And that shows a lot of composure from a young player. I know he's in his 3rd year, but when you're talking about vets like PJ, Tobias, Joel, James, it's kind of hard to find your voice, and he is finding his voice, and it has been really, really fun to watch as well. But again, this team has been looking really good. It's tough because they're playing late at night. They're out in the West Coast, and you're trying to stay up and watch it. I couldn't even finish watching. I've stopped around the beginning of the 4th quarter. But listen, this team has been really, really special, especially out in the West Coast. Like I mentioned, 3 of these 4 wins that they've had out west, 2 of them probably would have been losses in years prior. It's difficult to play out there. You got some solid teams. You shut, especially defensively, overall, especially last night, you did a good job of slowing down Damian Lillard. It was a solid game plan. You build a big enough lead, and you were able to capitalize, and you're able to get the job done. But the job is not done, guys, because next up you got the Sacramento Kings, who, if you guys remember, listen, they're a solid team this year. I thought, why don't we just blow up them standings? Earlier in the year, they were riding high, and we were able to kind of knock them down a peg. And they were at a playoff team at that point, and so once that game happened, I think that kind of set them back to reality. But I'm pulling up the standings right now, and look at who's in 3rd place of the Western frickin' Conference, about half game up. The Sacramento Kings. What? Dude, I can't believe. Listen, I've always known Mike Brown was a good coach. I thought that he was very underrated, especially in this Cleveland Cavs days, because look, it does. It was those teams did make a final. Those teams did make a lot of playoffs. I know they had one of the best players at the time, but I think that's so impressive. He got handed a terrible card with the Lakers, and dude, nobody has been able to get the Kings to play, and he's got them in third place of the Western Conference right now. That is really, really remarkable. I wish I could. All right, so let's look at their last game. So last game they beat the Lakers, a 116-111 win. Harrison Barnes dropped 20. Rashawn Holmes, we talk about processor. Rashawn Holmes, he dropped 16 points. Obviously, you're expecting a lot of your points to come from De'Aaron Fox. 31 points from De'Aaron, 18 from Herter off the bench. Trey Lyles with dude, okay. They're getting contributions. Kudos to them. Okay. So, I mean, I'd expect that De'Aaron would be their main scorer. But also, I know Kevin Herter has really flourished over in Sacramento. He's gotten a lot of more freedom. He's been starting a lot as well. They got him as a guard here in Sacktown, but he's been really flourishing too. But it should be fun. I'll be excited to watch that game and to see what the Sixers can do out there. What's up, Raynell? Good morning to you, sir. Hope you're having a great day, man. All right, so we'll see what happens. So that is going to be a Saturday. So that's part of the jam-packed Philly sports Saturday that we're going to have. I believe the Wings also play in the morning. I just got word of that. So you got the Wings, you got Union preseason, you got Flyers in Detroit, you got the Birds playoff game here in Philly against the Giants at night. You got the Sixers versus the Kings at 10 o'clock. All I can say is pace yourself, Philadelphia, for Saturday. Drink your Wooders. Get your hoagies. Just stay alive, all right? Just stay alive to watch all these games because we have a lot of freaking sports on Saturday. So luckily today is a quiet one. Maybe go to bed early. Maybe get yourself a nice meal, a nice healthy meal, some greens, some proteins, and all that stuff. So definitely check that out. But guys, thanks so much for watching. That's going to do it for today's Sixers game recap. Again, the Sixers take care of business against the Portland Trailblazers, 105-95, and we're off against Sacramento. Also, it doesn't make sense that we're going from LA to Portland, back to Sacramento, but either way, NBA scheduling never makes sense. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and as always, let's go Philly sports.